Welcome back to True Talk Cafe, where we have honest conversations about growth, identity, leadership, and life. Today's conversation is one that we believe will resonate deeply with so many people, especially those known as the dependable ones, the achievers, the fixers, and I think we have a few of us on here that can fall under that. We're talking about what happens when overachievers get stuck. And the truth is, it's often not because they lack skills, talent, or intelligence.
Well, so I guess there's going to be a lot of conversation today, but we are especially excited because we're not having this conversation alone. Joining us is someone whose perspective and experience make her the perfect voice for this topic. Please help us welcome Dr. Carol Vargas-Bautista. Dr. Carol, can you share a little bit about your exceptional expertise with us?
Well, Hannah and Lolly, thank you so much first for having me. It's truly an honor to be here in your podcast. And I'm really excited that you invited me, particularly to this topic, because I do feel that this quietly touches so many people. And honestly, it's personal too. Yeah, for a long time, I was also the reliable one. As you pointed out, we probably are going to rely a lot and relate a lot on this topic. But a little bit about my background. My background is in biochemistry and academic leadership. I came to United States in 2008, all the way from Colombia to do my PhD in biochemistry at Texas A&M University. And I stayed there for 15 years, growing and going through the ranks until I became the Dean of Graduate Studies in the College of Medicine. And I spent so many years working in the healthcare and in the higher education settings, leading graduate programs, mentoring students, trainees, managing teams, overall supporting overachievers, high performing people who were in very demanding environments. So I started my coaching like 5 years ago, but 3 years ago I left A&M. And I started doing this full time, and now I work with executives and I help people to go through transition, leaders, scientists, people in several fields who overall are high achievers who are navigating transitions or feel burnout or wanna continue growing in their leadership career.
Thank you, Dr. Carol, for introducing yourself. We're not going to hold it against you when we have a Longhorn in the house that you're an Aggie, but
Still my friend. She picked a Texas school is all that matters.
Colombia, she managed to get to us. But no, thank you for joining us. I think today's conversation is very important. Many high performers become known for being the person who can always handle it, and I think we've had several conversations around that before, right? And then we need someone to solve the crisis, someone to be emotionally steady. People naturally look toward the overachiever, right? So tell us a little bit about how you've experienced this in your own life.
Yeah, I mean, I saw this constantly in healthcare and academia. Actually, I had a boss who used to say, and her philosophy was truly like, if you need something done, you need to assign it to the busiest person on your team. And she felt proud saying that. And honestly, what happened is that in most cases, the person who is the most dependable one is the person who provides that infrastructure to the organization. So the organization keeps functioning. But they are not only doing the tactical part of their job description, but they are also doing things that are not even part of that job description. They are managing conflict and solving crisis quietly behind the scenes, absorbing the pressure. Actually, I had a client not too long ago who wanted to get promoted. And she thought the way to that was by doing it all, right? By gaining more of those responsibilities. And she was very happy at the beginning because everyone else started to rely on her. And, if you can step up for a while and do things, that's the right thing to promote your career, but not when this is no longer a temporary function. And so, of course, after a while, she started coming to coaching because she didn't get promoted, but she did get exhausted. So basically, what happened is that it became very counterproductive for her career to do this. It became the default. Nobody else was checking, and she wasn't checking either until we discovered that was the issue through coaching.
That's pretty amazing. I think you definitely hit it. At first you feel rewarded, right? You feel like you're the one getting the attention. You feel valuable and needed and trusted. But as it gets to go over some time, something kind of starts to happen, and your identity becomes tied to performance and reliability, but everybody's just used to you being available.
That's right. That's right, Ali. I think that when you touches on identity, I think that's the key part, because that's probably the issue that many overachievers experience, that they overfunction for too long, and that becomes a pattern, especially for demographics like, for example, let's be honest, we women, when we are raised to be the caregivers, or people who make caregiving their career, or even first generation professionals who want to prove themselves to someone else, that kind of becomes a habit, very attached to identity, as you pointed out, Lolly. And so it gets programmed, and at the same time you start like receiving that praise for being reliable and responsible and adaptable and resilient. So after a while, that becomes really exhausting, and it goes into the survival mode. But many cases, people, the overachiever doesn't see it as a struggle, but that's an achievement, and the fact that the overachiever gets compliments from everyone, and you're great, what can I do without you? That becomes a feedback loop, and the exhaustion gets normalized. And so it's like, this is how life is supposed to be for me, until the hidden cost of accumulating that over time affects the mental and even the physical health of these people, and they cannot hold it any longer.
Would you say that they start experiencing some burnout in that moment?
That's exactly what it is. Is at a point where many people come to coaching because they feel like I can handle anymore, and I kind of feel that I like the praise, but at the same time I don't want to keep doing this because I'm exhausted.
Yeah, so that really resonates with us. And recently we had Renee do a micro episode on the visibility gap, right? And talking about how getting thanked or appreciated is not really moving the needle forward. And it's interesting because many overachievers truly don't get stuck because they're incapable. They get stuck because they've spent so much time surviving expectations that they lose connection with themselves or focus on their own things, kind of like what you shared about your client. I gave a workshop on Friday, and this is one of the very topics we talked about. We tied it to the Madrina framework, where we're talking about how we have to take a moment to really look at that mirror and not look away. Not look away. You cannot look away from the mirror because, a lot of people might think that looking away means you're not good enough or you're not capable enough, when in reality, it might be, I'm too afraid to try. I am too busy to move forward, and they get stuck. So thank you for sharing that with us. It really resonated with a lot of the conversations, even the good night, well, how are you doing conversation before we logged in to do this recording, right? So there's a lot there, and I appreciate you sharing some of those things, because it's good to share your own experience, but also that you gain from your clients, because we're all resonating here. I think we navigate things differently, whether you have kids, don't have kids, whether you have a husband, don't have a husband, whether you have a job, don't have a job. There could be burnout, and that doesn't mean you're not capable of doing something different. That just means you truly are burnt out. What do you think, Lolly?
Well, I've said in the past that I am a recovering overachiever. And I really do mean that, because it is easy to get back into that feeling. And the point that, you enjoy feeling dependable, you enjoy being the one that can solve the problems, but there's a fine line there. And I get to push on my buddy Anna quite a bit when it's like, hey, Anna, you got to stop. You got to make sure you make time for your family. You got to do this. You got to do that. Not that I'm trying to give her more, but I'm trying to make her find a balance because unfortunately, we do a lot. I sure, we enjoy being busy, but we got to pick the things that we are busy for. And sometimes when people expect you to be the overachiever, you end up, with everything on your plate. And is it really there that we want? Because quite honestly, it's not a skill issue, it's exhaustion, and you get emotionally depleted, there's resentment. I mean, you're carrying responsibility without that restoration. So you got to be, in all honesty, many overachievers become trapped in roles where everyone benefits from the excellence except themselves. Think about that. Everybody benefits but yourself. That's crazy.
Right. I mean, like, I think you pointed out to something really important, and is, like you said, Lolly, everything gets in your plate, and there is really a highly hidden cost behind that, right? Because you're carrying so many things that are invisible, and you also touched that, right, with your friend Renee. That so many things are invisible that nobody gives you credit for. Nobody is even aware you're managing all of that, and you are anticipating problems, protecting the team morale, mentoring others, helping, manage other people's emotions, holding standards together. In fact, you name it, right? And what happens is that at organizational level, people may come and informally say, "Oh, you're doing such a great job," but what is lacking really is the structural support that makes that sustainable in the long term. And quite frankly, I mean, like the the thing is that yes, organizations are not there to support you, but honestly, also we have to take accountability on our part as well. And the fact that we often, as overachievers, tend to have everything on our plate is also probably a reflection of perfectionism. So to your listeners, I ask them to reflect if that is playing a role, because what happens often is that many times you could fall into this trap of thinking that if you don't do it yourself, it won't be right. And so what happens is that excellence translate in lack of boundaries, and really, in a way, it's self-abandonment as well.
Again, you touched on a lot of things, right? It's you don't want to get lost. You don't want to get lost in the shuffle. And something I've reflected on recently is, how reliability can unintentionally become exploitation, right? Because now it's expected. Now the assumption is that, hey, she'll handle it. She never says no. She always figures it out. And so if you don't start establishing those boundaries, the exploitation happens. And sometimes when you do start establishing the boundaries, then your commitment might be questioned, or, you might be asked something. And you did mention that we have to take our own accountability. By the same token, we recently had a micro episode on confident conversations or confident communication. Your boss or your supervisor or your leader should also know what you want to gain. They should also be listening to you. So it is a two-way street. And we specifically shared on that episode that no feedback or no agreement or no movement forward is actually one of the loudest feedback you can receive. That simply means you might have to shift. You have to do it your own. So, what you said earlier, you can't do it all. You have to keep moving. You have to, do things, but also recognizing that you shouldn't have to burn out. You shouldn't have to be the go-to. You shouldn't have to do all those things. So, yeah, thank you for sharing with that. What are your thoughts, Lolly? I know we've had this conversation several times.
Oh my goodness. I've seen this, and I've especially seen this when I've seen somebody who is really, you would think they're ready for the next level. We need to promote this person. And then somebody will come back and say, oh, but we really need her where she's at. We can't find somebody who's going to take her spot. And you have to step back and say, as a leader, it's our responsibility as well to say, she because she's really good, we owe it to her to find somebody, give the person an opportunity to grow like she did, and give her that next step that needs to be. But it is by all means really, easy to say, oh, well, I just really need her in that place because she's really good at that. So it is very possible for instead of it being a reward for you being competent, it just means they give you more work because you are so confident, right? And you can handle more. It's not necessarily more support or more recognition. And to top it all off, because we're so good at saying yes, it's in many cases, it's not even extra money or anything else, just simply more weight to the load that you're carrying.
Yes, yeah, fully agree with both of you. And I think that, for whoever is listening this podcast today, if you're experiencing something like what we are discussing today, I think the key is to have the courage, right? And be able to separate self-worth from usefulness. Because when we understand that we don't need to keep doing it all to feel valuable, that we don't need to be producing every day, like every hour, every week, 365 days a year, then we can start creating that space for ourselves to really start realizing when is the time to move forward, if that's the case, and confront that and be very strategic about the next, what's the next move for us. But if we keep doing, we're not going to be able to create that space for us, and we're not going to be able to successfully move forward. And I I remember when I was a PhD student, I remember there were times where I was working 18 hours a day, and it was crazy. And it was funny because during the monthly meetings, I had to present everything that I had accomplished during the month. And I had one time a faculty who told me, wow, you're an overachiever. And it sounded like really she meant it in a way that you're doing more than you need to do. But I actually was very proud at that point that she said that, because I needed at that point so much to prove myself. I needed to keep providing that value. I felt that if I didn't produce the next month as I was producing this month, they were not going to value me anymore. And so that's normal fear, right? Like human fear. Yeah. But really, honestly, it hit me when I saw somebody who was worse than me. How, like, that person was coming to up to midnight, sleeping 3-4 hours at home, and coming at 4 a.m. in the morning to work again to the laboratory. And then I understood. I realized at that point that if you really want to be successful in your career, not in this particular role you're doing now, but in your life, in your career, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And because of that, you really need to factor into it the resilience that it's needed to be successful. And being resilient is not about enduring more and taking more. It's really about being able to include boundaries and recovery, and being able to create a sustainable way to grow our career.
I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It's really, we got to think long term. And are you willing, or are you even capable of continuing to stay at that pace, right? I think that as overachievers, we do struggle with permission for us to rest, permission to not disappoint people. Oh my goodness, I know that one. And permission to not constantly prove your value. Quite honestly, if you think some of the best leaders out there, they aren't necessarily doing something all the time, right? It's big things, and so we got to learn to how can we make that work? Anna, what do you think?
If you think back, a lot of the women that we've coached and everything, and I'm saying women specifically for this one, because of the conversation we're having, but this is really, it's all inclusive. It hits men, women, and everything. But a lot of the women that we have coached, somewhere along the line, they've learned that their worth comes from what they produce. Some of us from the cultural expectations, societal expectations, some of us just from our moms in our ear telling us, well, you have kids now, you can't do this. And I'm like, yes, I can. I have to do it all now. Or you have to do it better because they just told you you couldn't. And then if you're anything like Anna and Lolly, it's like hell's anybody going to tell us we can't do it. So now we have that, which is, I do feel like sometimes we take that and it does become a strength, but at the same time, it could also become a crutch, right? Because why do I have to do it better than everyone else each time? Why do I have to beat everyone? I am competitive by nature, but why do I have to always win at everything? Because then I'm putting more pressure on myself. So I do, believe that some of us have learned that along the way. And knowing that, Dr. Carol, what advice would you give to some of the listeners out there on just anything that we've discussed today?
Well, I think that the key factor is to really realize that you don't have to earn rest through exhaustion, right? Like that's not something that you need to earn. Like if if your listeners can go with three things today, I would say first, it's really having this mindset shift from asking themselves all the time, how much can I carry, to really what kind of life and leadership is sustainable for me, right? That would be like that that would be a great win to have that mindset shift. The second thing is, you mentioned this, Lolly, and it's about resentment, right? Like you get resented. And if you are going through that, that is data. I would say that that's information there. And so it's either two things. One, that, it's signaling that boundaries are missing somewhere, or that you're overgiving for too long. And so if you're feeling resented, just reflect a little bit on that to see if you can change something there. And three, just as you pointed out, Anna, ambition is good, right? Like being somebody who is healing from and recovering from overachievement doesn't mean that you're less ambitious. It's actually the other way around, in my opinion, because when you heal from being an overachiever, you become more intentional, right? And now you are more strategic. Yes, you're not getting 25 things done today, right? But you are creating the space to think through and become very mindful about what pays better in the long term and moving in that direction. So really, when you are able to overcome overachievement, you are going to be better off in the long term, your career, your life, and honestly, your happiness overall.
I think you're absolutely correct on that. Being the oldest one in this group, I can tell you it's taken me probably as long as I've been alive to learn this lesson. But it is, I think one of the big things was learning that setting boundaries is not being selfish. Having some rest. I don't even like to tell people if I had to take a nap today, it makes me feel like I'm weak, right? So it's really about understanding that, delegating to somebody to do, it's not a failure. Asking someone for help, it's not being incompetent by any means, but rather, we should have permission to rest. We have, per, we should give it to ourselves rather than expect other people to do that, right? And it's I think we just need to continue to do the best that we can. when it comes to that. Anna?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that maybe the healthiest thing to do is to move from proving yourself to protecting yourself. And by golly, if you're out there listening, I know easier said than done. I've been saying it the whole year and I still haven't gone there. So you're not alone. But it is something to do intentional, right? From you don't have to prove yourself, just protect yourself because protecting yourself will ultimately allow you to be more successful in the things that are important to you.
So think about this. Are you succeeding externally while quietly running empty internally? Right? And that is definitely something that hits our overachievers. Externally, they look like they got it all, but inside there's an emptiness.
And in true talk fashion, we do have another question for you to ponder. Have people become so comfortable relying on you that they've stopped asking what it costs you? Take that one away because I want you to really reflect on it. Don't answer it right away. Take a moment with it. Dr. Carol, what are some closing reflection questions you'd like to ask our listeners to take away from today?
The most important part is to learn how to connect our self-worth with who we are, not what we offer to other people. So our self-worth needs to be connected on this is me and I know that this is enough to like whoever needs to be by my side and run this marathon with me, and if not, then it's better to walk away. And when that happens, that will offer you a freedom that would allow you to even take over many other things, being fully and plenty successful and fulfilled around those things.
So the question that you guys have to ask yourself out there is, who am I surrounded by? And is it helping me move forward?
Well, that's my reason for being with these two ladies on this call. It does help me to have that balance. So thank you, Dr. Carol. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and perspective with our leaders today. Even if you are an Aggie, right?
Giving me, oh my goodness.
Did you not know that yet? I don't know why I had to throw it out there today. It's so funny. But you know what? Yes, thank you for
I think
joining.
I knew it. I have never understood that rivalry, to be honest. I love you all. I love
Oh,
Sandra,
you
and
know,
I love
you're one of my favorites.
Aggie
Absolutely. I
equally.
just have to tease.
Yes. There's
I
no
know.
reason to stop the rivalry if it feels good. No, but thank you again for joining us. I think this conversation reminds us to remember that our value is not tied only to our productivity or performance. There's so much more. We like to say in our coaching, our leadership coaching, you are not your title, you're so much more beyond your title. Same thing, you are not your achievement, you are so much beyond the achievements because achievement should not be calculated by others' expectations. Achievements should be something that you feel is an achievement. To me, it might be today, it was just getting my master suite clean. Like I wanted my bathroom to be shiny, spotless, and my grandson's toys out of there. That was one of my greatest achievements of the weekend, to be honest with you. So achievement can look like whatever you need it to do. It's not based on the productivity or performance. It's what makes you feel good. Dr. Carol, any final words of encouragement for our listeners today?
I love it. I love it. And I love the example that you gave because this is all about becoming, it's not about becoming less capable. It's really about becoming more holistic, about what you're capable of holistically. So if it's cleaning your restroom, spending the time with your kids or grandkids, that all of that should be count for you as an overachiever as I did it, so that you pursue all of your ambitions all together in a sustainable way.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us at True Talk Cafe. Remember, growth isn't just about achievements. Sometimes it's about learning. You don't have to earn your worth through exhaustion. Right.
And in
Thank
closing,
you.
don't forget to follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and add our podcast to your favorite podcast, what is it called, platform, so that you can continue to get updates when we load new episodes, including this one and our weekly micro episodes. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.